Hey guys, fun one for you today because behind me are two Acura RDXs. Is that the word RDXs? We've got the second gen 2013 and the brand new one. In this video, we're going to compare them and see which one is better. See if technology has actually improved the RDX. On the front of the old RDX, the first thing you notice is the beak. This was a classic Acura design cue for many, many years, but basically the grille kind of comes to this point and looks like a beak on a bird. Now compared to the new one, you can see the beak has pretty much gone away. Still a little bit down here at the center of the grille, but the new Acura is much more angular, much more aggressive. But one thing that looks a little silly to my mind is the badge size. So this old one has a very standard looking Acura badge. The new one is about the same size as my head. And I have a huge nerdy head, so that's saying something. Other things you notice, the old one has more traditional projector beams, and the new one has kind of these LEDs that extend down toward the middle. These kind of look like bugs when it first debuted on the Acuras a few years ago, but now they look pretty normal. This Acura is the 2013 RDX. It is the second generation of the model. The first generation used a 4-cylinder turbo, and then for this generation they went to a 3.5 liter V6. You can see this one is well loved. But it's great to see that's being used. Now the new Acura RDX has gone back to the 4-cylinder turbo, so in this model we have a 2-liter turbocharged engine. Funny enough, this one makes less power than the old 3.5 liter V6. 272 horsepower here in the new one, 273 horsepower in the old one. But luckily the new one also makes a lot more torque, over 30 pound-feet more torque. This is the key in the 2013 RDX. It's held up really well, and it's got buttons for lock, unlock, your tailgate, and then of course panic. And to get into the car, you just simply walk up to it, grab the door handle, and open it. So even 7 years later, it works like pretty much every new car. Funny enough, the new key works in exactly the same way. You can see the order of the buttons are identical. It has improved a little bit in the quality area, but same operation. Grab the door handle, open it up, and then to lock it, they went away from the button, and now we have this little haptic thing. I actually prefer the button, I think. One thing I love about the old Acura is the red start button. How sporty is that? And even after 86,000 miles, none of the letters have worn off, so that's cool. Push the start button, the engine fires up into life, and I actually really like the old Acura steering wheel. It's leather wrapped. It just feels good, nice soft leather, and it has up and down paddles here in the steering wheel for the 6-speed automatic. The new RDX also has a start button, but it's no longer red. It's just a silver button, but foot on the brake, start it up, and it glides into life. Now, as good as that old steering wheel is, this new one is even better. This is the A-Spec, which is kind of like the sporty trim, but it's got perforated leather here. I love the quality of the buttons. Acura just does really good steering wheels. They just feel good in your hand, and the paddle shifters in this one are even nicer. They are now a metallic finish, and you can go up and down on the 10-speed automatic, so it's gained 4 gears. Okay, it does do something pretty cool when you start the engine. It glows red. I don't know if you can see that, but so they did keep the sporty spirit in the start button. The old Acura is actually a joy to drive. It's really small and nimble and tossable compared to so many crossovers, you know, built today, and steering is really good. It's surprisingly direct, surprisingly precise. Now the power, gee whiz, it's pretty quick. That's my 1950s phrase of the day, but this does have all-wheel drive. It's not the crazy super handling all-wheel drive of the new one, but if you need to get through snow or, you know, to the trailhead, it'll probably get you where you need to go. Now the transmission feels really smooth. I think 6 speeds is kind of the sweet spot in transmission number of gears. It's not too many. You never feel like you're hunting, but it's not too few. Brakes feel good even at 90,000 miles. It's just a nice car to drive. I don't know what to tell you. Acura did a great job sorting out the old RDX, and the new one's got big shoes to live up to. Let's see if it does. Here in the old Acura, we have a traditional gear selector with park, reverse, neutral drives, and sport settings. And I love the actual shifter itself. It's this little baseball wrapped leather unit. It feels good in the hand. The new Acura has moved to push buttons for the transmission. So there's a button for park, a pull back for reverse, a button for neutral, and of course a push for drive and sport modes. Now The primary advantage of the system is it clears up a lot of space in the center, which means, look at this, we have a floating middle console, so additional storage down here, but it's not quite as satisfying to use as the old school mechanical lever. Both of these Acuras have a fairly similar design for the center stack. They both have the actual buttons that jut out from the center of the dashboard, but they operate in very different ways. Now here on the old Acura, the primary radio controls live up here in this middle section. We've got buttons for presets and of course a volume knob, which is great. And then below that we've got this big rotary knob, and that controls the infotainment screen. It's not a touch screen, you have to use the rotary knob. And the infotainment is a little bit interesting because it's primarily used for navigation, so you can see zoom out in and out of the map. You can also set your destination, but there are smaller screens for audio, and there's even a screen here for your phone controls. Not particularly easy to use, but it actually isn't bad, especially for a system designed over 8 years ago. Below that we have controls for the climate controls, and when you turn up the temperature, move it up and down, it actually displays right here near the audio. So it's pretty easy to use. It looks a little bit low definition by modern standards, but it really isn't all that bad actually. Definitely see the design similarities when you step into the new Acura, but the functionality is very different. So up here at the top of the button panel, we have our climate controls, but there's no separate panel for audio. Audio and navigation and the other car controls are actually incorporated into the infotainment screen, which is a little bit of a problem because it looks like it should be touchscreen, but it absolutely isn't. It's controlled via this wonky little touch panel down here, kind of by the shifter, and it's just very, very hard to use. It's not very intuitive. I think they took this basic design from Lexus in the way it works with its little touchpad, but Lexus has gone away from that completely and has gone back to touchscreens just because it's not easy to use this little touchpad, especially while you're driving. They did give you like a little pad, which is funny, to rest your hands, but I'd much rather they just get rid of it altogether. The funny thing about the new Acura is in the center, they actually prioritize the drive modes. So that's the main control in the center of the Acura. It feels like it should be the volume knob, but the volume knob actually lives up here. Obviously the graphics on this are so much better than the older Acura. Oh, sorry, see, habit. But just the usability. Like, how do I scroll down XM? Careful. Careful now! Damn it. Careful. Come on. Yes, there we go. We're into XM. The old Acura does have a sunroof, but it's relatively small. It extends over the front passengers and then stops, but it does completely open. The new Acura has a full panoramic sunroof. You actually have to open up the screen via a button, and then it glides back. It extends all the way to the back above the rear passengers. And then you can also open the front portion by pushing and holding the tilt button, and it slides open. You can draw a direct line between that 2013 RDX and this new one because Acura is just such a driver-focused company. This one is not quite as fun to drive as the old one, but it still is super solid, and this is a much better road trip vehicle. It's just softer, the seats are more comfortable, and I'd rather take this one on 1,000 miles across country than the old one. It's also just, you know, a little bit more airy in here. Now if I dial it into sport mode here, give it some beans. Whoa, very different power delivery. So the old one has kind of that super smooth progressive power band of a naturally aspirated V6. This one, very much turbocharged. You gotta wait until about 5,000 before anything happens, but when it does, it takes off. It's got a cool sound too. Sounds a lot like a Civic Type R, and I have a feeling that's probably no coincidence. Steering's not quite as good. It's a little bit over boosted even in the higher sport modes, but still, fun car to drive. The back seat in the old Acura is pretty usable. It's actually very usable, so you hop back here, easy lift over height for your feet. This seat is all the way back. I've got decent leg room and actually pretty decent headroom. Could be a little bit better for the headroom, but 3 abreast seating in the rear, very usable. The new Acura is quite a bit larger than the old one. Let's see what that means for rear seat leg room. Well, funny enough, it actually hasn't improved all that much. This seat is all the way back as well. Rear seat legroom's about the same. I would say headroom's a little bit worse so because we've got the full panoramic sunroof. It definitely subtracts some headroom for backseat passengers. The good news is the seat itself is much more comfortable. I also do like the gray piping, and we've got USBs back here for your kids that will now be texting their way on your road trip. The rear of the RDX is pretty conservative in its overall design. Look at this, you'll notice no visible tailpipes, they hide them away. But to get into the trunk, I'm going to use the key, push and hold, and then you wait, and you wait, and you wait. I don't know if this has slowed down over the years, but definitely a little bit pokey. I do like the ELS sound system back here. Of course, you can fold the seats from the back. Just push them forward, in theory. Aha, there we go. And then you've got the 60/40 fold. Let's see what the new one's like. Now the rear of the new Acura RDX has gotten a lot more sporty, a lot more curves and angles, and look at the exhaust. Dual pipes out the back. You'll notice the actual pipe is pretty small in there, but the tip is just enormous. It's huge, and for some reason there's now this like plastic rear diffuser. But anyways, I think it's pretty cool. Pop the trunk. Oh yeah, much quicker. Look at that, and this is where you'll see a lot of the improvements in the size of the vehicle. In the rear here, huge amounts of storage back here. I do like the tie-down points, and look at this. Look how handy this is. You've got one divider here and a second divider here with various storage cubbies. How cool is that? Now the rear seats do fold flat, you know, same kind of operation. Pull the lever. I think the springs are a little bit worn out in that old one, but they do pop down. And now just acres of room. So tons and tons of room in the back seat of the Acura. Now the Acura RDX has changed a lot in some ways, hasn't changed that much in other ways. Design department obviously very different, the new one is much bigger, but the overall feel has remained very similar the way it drives. I do like the engine in the new one more than the naturally aspirated in the second generation, but let me know what you think in the comment section below. Can you live with that tremendously terrible infotainment screen in the new one, or would you spend, I don't know, a quarter of the price and just get a used one instead? Well, as always, this is Tommy with the Fast Lane Car. Check out TFLcar.com for the latest and greatest in new car reviews.